Hi friends, this is the voice of Andrew Kolb, and today I want to go through a quick commentary regarding these sort of painterly, almost gouache-like illustrations that I've kind of created in the past. I've done screen recordings before, as you'll kind of see on the channel, I suppose, but I haven't really kind of talked about the process behind it. So this is a piece inspired by Kiki's Delivery Service, a Studio Ghibli film. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I did not look it up ahead of time. Oh well. So Kiki's Delivery Service for a themed show that was actually hosted kind of locally in the town where I live. So I did two small pieces, this one and then another inspired by Spirited Away, both kind of riffing off of the themes of landscapes and kind of skies, which I find kind of appears a lot in Miyazaki films. So that's kind of the concept behind it. So let's actually talk about what's going on here. So I'm using Kyle T. Webster's dry media brushes. A lot of people, I think, that I've just talked to regarding kind of getting a painterly aesthetic tend to use his gouache sets, or maybe it's just one set, but tend to use that one. I find that I kind of get the results I'm looking for actually using his dry media set. Oh, actually, and there you saw the Spirited Away piece. And I'd finished the other one first, or I'd finished that piece first, and then use that as a kind of template for positioning of the focal point and the horizon line and so on, which is where you see those guides are running right now. Anyway, what's happening? So I've painted that kind of main interior square freehand. So sometimes I'll hold shift to get straight edges, but I find to make this look as kind of organic and as kind of traditional as possible, I need to kind of use the same methods. I very loose kind of rough edges. Like I have an idea of the size, but I'm just kind of going freehand on my Cintiq, and then laying down a base color. And I'm painting up or building up this painting the same way that I would if I was painting traditionally. Admittedly, I don't paint traditionally that often, so maybe this is completely wrong, but it's worked for me, so I can't complain. But once I've laid down that base color of, let's call it kind of a peach, now that peach has been placed, now I'm painting on top of it with a drier brush, or a brush that mimics a drier application of color, with a slightly different kind of value. I don't end up using too many layers when I paint this way, but what I will do, and I've talked about this before, is I'll lock transparent pixels. So if I like a texture, like let's say I like the texture on the background of that peach square, then I will sometimes lock it in so that way it doesn't get lost when I build up. And again, what that means is just in Photoshop, clicking on that little checkerboard, which beside the word lock on the layers panel, let me start over. On the layers panel, there's the little word lock, and then directly to the right of it, there's a checkerboard. And if you click that, then it'll only allow you to paint where pixels already exist or where artwork already exists. So if you have a texture that you really like and you don't want to lose it, in the case of this, then once I've locked it, no color will kind of fill in that texture. It'll just kind of work within what was already there. But I digress, and too much is happening. So admittedly, this is now happening on a new layer. I'm painting the clouds same way as I would traditionally, where I'm painting that base color first and then building the texture on top of it. And you'll notice, and I think this is kind of what makes it look a little more organic or traditional, is that I'm allowing for some error. So you'll see on that kind of top left cloud, I didn't actually end up covering all of the peach square on that left edge, so that imperfect line isn't completely hidden by the cloud. And I think it's those little details that actually make it feel more traditional than the brush itself. So if you're working through, again, think about kind of what you're doing, and if you're trying to mimic a specific process, then really try to get your head into the space of someone actually creating the work in that manner. So I think that'll lead to a more organic result, or results that are closer to kind of what you're looking to achieve. And now I'm just kind of building up the water. A lot of this is kind of similar to what I've done with the background, in that laying a base color and then building texture on top of it with more and more textured brushes, or the brushes get more textures as I paint, so that way less color gets applied. But actually, one thing I will talk about instead, now that this process is kind of repeating itself, is how I choose color. So you'll notice that on that kind of left edge, that little color sample, I tend to do my color studies or really lock in my color studies before I proceed to final artwork. I find that kind of little bit of preparation really kind of saves me a lot of time later on. Also with client work, it tends to lend itself or lead to a good communication and a good relationship where they kind of know what to expect based on the color study that I've sent them. For me, though, a lot of work goes into the back end to decide that color palette before I actually get to final artwork. And how I approach my color is, well, I mean, for this one specifically, because it was a sunset, I found, well, actually, maybe I worked in reverse. I knew I wanted to keep Kiki, obviously, the focal point. But because of her kind of really bright blue dress, I want to contrast that. So because she was working with a lot of cools, I wanted the setting to be a lot warmer. And a typical sky being blue didn't work with it. So while I could have just changed the values and maybe gone with a green or something that contrasted her blue dress, I instead decided to kind of change the whole setting so it felt a little more natural, but still allowed me the opportunity to contrast her outfit. And then using the red bow, kind of use that to tie the elements together. So the same red of her bow also appears in the water and on the in the sun. So it kind of keeps it all, well, it keeps it all together, but in a way that, again, feels organic. And then allowing that blue of the dress to appear in the wings of the seagulls. I was inspired kind of by the artwork that kind of really is iconic or synonymous with Kiki's delivery service, that kind of scene of her kind of on her broom in the sky, surrounded by the seagulls. It was also a nice way to kind of show the setting too. So she's not necessarily in a country setting or somewhere really kind of by or landlocked. The seagulls really lend itself to kind of showing that she's close to shore. So while that isn't kind of a catch-all for how I choose color, in this case, basically what it was it was driven by contrast. So I wanted something that really set Kiki apart from the environment. And that was it. So I know that had kind of come up in a couple of the comments before or on previous posts. So I figured I'd kind of address it now. And that's pretty much it. So we have only a couple more minutes left, so I think the last thing I would say on this, or the whole kind of spirit of what I'm trying to accomplish with this commentary, is that the painterly aesthetic for me doesn't necessarily come across because of the tools. I think it's because I'm trying to mimic the process as much as possible. So it really is about kind of working in a similar order that you would if you were to do this with acrylics or gouache on paper. There are some opportunities. Obviously, you can erase and make changes that you couldn't do if you were just working traditionally. But I still try to follow the core step-by-step process as much as possible. So we're just finishing off the bag here. Leading into the last bit, which kind of runs fairly quickly. Once I'm finished with the artwork, what I will do is add some texture to imply that it was kind of painted on paper that is maybe not perfect or has aged a little bit. So what I will do is add a mask or a layer of that kind of cream, which is kind of happening now. And there's a mask applied to another layer just below it with texture, which I kind of made myself. But to make each piece feel unique, I paint in different colors of brown, so that way some of the speckle or some of the aging appears brighter on some pieces and darker on others. So while it's the same mask on a lot of the pieces, what that mask shows is different each time. So I hope you found this helpful. Oh, I'm wrapping up. Bye!